For those of you I have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Kerwin Brown, and I'm President and CEO of the Black Chamber of Arizona. Welcome. I really appreciate the turnout today. This is a very important event. We've worked very hard not only to have the inaugural bridge program last year, but we wanted to make sure that we satisfied a promise from last year and not make it a one-off. The discussions that we're going to have today are not discussions that are going to really have any solutions by just having one conversation. But I think the dialogue, the continued dialogue, will certainly help move the needle. Last year, in the wake of a lot of officer-involved shootings around the country, the Checkered Flag Run Foundation and the Black Chamber of Arizona, along with the University of Phoenix, decided that we would try to do something. We would try to bring together some police chiefs from around the country to actually have a civil dialogue. Some of you who I have personally invited may know that I made it a point to say this will not be a bitch session.
We were here about a year ago with a panel discussion with executives and with police chiefs from across the country, and it was not a very good time. We saw a lot of violence on our street and the escalation of it, and there was just a lot of emotion last year. Now it seems as though we're reflecting on the statistics and policies that are starting to change. What difference do you see? What difference does a year make?
Well, and within that year, I think the vacuum has been filled by a lot of governance over policing, as it relates to from the White House down, for example, that task force the president put together looking at policing in the 21st century, developed some pillars of expectations, I would call them, telling police chiefs what people have said around the country as they travel the country as a task force, talking to students, talking to parents, talking to community leaders about what they want policing to look like in the 21st century. So that book, that task force report now is like a...
And so this is a lot of great conversation, but I want to know, how do you take this off of paper? How do you take it out of the profile of conversation and make it happen and let us feel what you're saying? Because I don't feel any of it right now. We have a very positive relationship with the Phoenix Police Force, and Chief Yonner and a lot of his police officers, lieutenants and sergeants and commanders are here. But the crux of the community, that 1% to 2%, that's the population that we need to see. So could you address that, please?
Sure.
And
Yes.
I only need one or two of your feedbacks. And
Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
like to hear from the Dallas.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief Brown, please. Thank you.
In Phoenix, and I should first say welcome all of you to Phoenix, was that there is no adversarial relationship. We are partners for the police to do their best work, for the community to do their best work, all of us to be safe together. We have to have as strong police-community relations as possible. But it can't be a one-time event.
When I talk
Great
about
police
this,
community relations.
one of the things I hope we can spur conversations, with some of the police chiefs here, is, what does that actually mean? How does that translate? For me, growing up, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and there's a couple of y'all here too. The police lived in my neighborhood.
What does a new police chief look like this day and age as you prepare to hire, to step away from your post? And we thank you for your service.
Thank you.
To retire, and then the new generation police chief comes in. What does that look like? As another of your colleagues mentioned, you need a warning label on that now. I mean, it's changed.
Well, you got to be ready to work, number one. It's a very busy job being a police chief in a major city. But probably the most important aspect is being open and having the ability to communicate, not just internally with the police officers, but externally with your community.
In a society that not only have cultures that are distinguished by ethnics and race, U.S. has a culture, right? And that bantering of that culture changes the way people think and what they can do and can't do. And if you're a young man that grew up shooting guns, doing all different stuff, you can fake yourself, if you will, use that word, into being a good character or whatever else. But it's only until you kill somebody you shouldn't have that you go now find out that you've been doing this, you've been doing that, you've been doing this, outside of your profession.
And what the chiefs also need to acknowledge is that 98% of your organization is doing everything this community expects. But you have that 1 or 2% of your organization that basically shouldn't be cops. And it sounds like a small number, 1 or 2%. In my organization, that's 300 people. That's a lot of cops that shouldn't be cops.
I loved what you said about the relationship between the police department and the community and how we need to date each other. Can you explain that?
Right, it's just trying to draw the analogy that the relationship with the community and police has to be real. It has to be felt. Because the breakdown in the community is so detrimental to cities in our country, particularly the major cities. And we've seen it.
How can you connect community engagement and activism with police professionalism to build a stronger relationship?
The training, who's training the trainers, because we can have training all day long, right? But that's one thing that we're not sure we're getting right.
I have always been taught when it comes to policing is community-oriented policing starts with the first word of that acronym of cops, is community. You can't solve crimes, you can't police a community, you can't do anything in a community unless you have the buy-in, respect, and the cooperation of the people that you're paid to serve.
I know too many young people who are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful young people, and they have had some experiences that are not very positive. And what I think in terms of the prison system, the slavery pipeline for the prison system, I think we need to look at equity. When an African American is picked up for a crime, and an Anglo-Saxon is picked up for a crime, what is the penalty that is given? There needs to be equity, because in some instances...
And you're rocking it. Yeah, I love just how aggressive you are. I mean, it's almost like you're not wasting any time here.
Yeah.
I mean, we just started to see changes take place within the last year in the Phoenix area, but it seems like you started a while back.
But what we decided as an organization was, if something was not right, that we were going to take action and take action quickly. And so what you see in some of the other cities that occurred that caused some of the disruption is that they didn't take action quickly. It would be 3 weeks or 6 weeks later before they would either charge an officer or do anything about it. And so the community is just at a complete uproar. And so one of the reasons is that we decided to make the arrest early is because when you have enough information, you can go ahead and make it. You don't need to wait 2, 3. You don't need to go confer with the district attorney and all these other things that people say that they have to do. You can make that decision. And so
listening to the community and sharing best practices. What can you share? Over the last couple of years, we've seen, just of course, an increase in forced transparency, right? On TV, and what we've seen as the really huge problem.
Have taught us the value of community policing and problem solving and partnershiping. And just to kind of sum up what I've heard is I couldn't agree more with the issue of accountability. And we talk about accountability as chiefs, but is accountability right down to the man and woman that's working the street or answering the 911 call, their accountability.
Sentence that the judge has to impose. So that's when we saw in the 80s, from the 85s, and all the way to the 2000s, you see, the criminal justice system just blossomed. In 1980, when I started, there was only 30,000 federal prisoners in all of these United States. Today there's over 200,000. So somewhere between.
Again, I want to thank our sponsors. for allowing us to put this on. Let's make sure that we take the knowledge that we've gotten and have some actions behind it.
How equipped are academy trainers to help train the new officers to deal with these diversity of issues in varying communities? That to me seems to be a challenge. As I look at the 21st Century Policing Report, and I was also going to ask you if your meeting at the White House a few weeks ago was a follow-up to that, but what that report suggests is the need for behavioral science practitioners to be involved in a change, quote unquote, that needs to take place, both within the community and in law enforcement. So again, the question is, to your knowledge, to what extent are the trainers in the academies prepared to do that type of work, and how is it being